All right, you are now tuned in to the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Lee Velez, and I am here with Gabe. That's right, folks. Just me and Gabe are recording this because we are recording this on an alternate day due to the holiday of Christmas being on a Monday, which obviously you guys know that's when we actually record our podcast. But since the holiday's here, we didn't want to miss a week, so we figured we'd get it in on the weekend, and everyone else is either working or already enjoying their holiday weekend. With that being said, this is episode number 87, Life's A-Changing. In this episode, me and Gabe focused on a PsychologyToday.com article titled Ways to Cope with Big Changes by Stephanie Sarkis. And as usual, we'll wrap the episode up with quotes by Lao Tzu and Steve Maraboli. All right, with that being said, if you're new, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. We kick things off with a definition from dictionary.com, and we define the word change. They define it as to make, parentheses, something different from what is or what it would be if left alone, transform or convert. All right, change. So that's obviously pretty straightforward. For the story portion, we actually have an article by Stephanie Sarkis from PsychologyToday.com titled 11 Ways to Cope with Big Changes. So this is interesting and very applicable to anybody, whether you're crazy successful in your life or whether you're just getting things started. So number one, acknowledge things are changing. Number two, realize stress can even come from good change. Number three, keep up your regular schedule as much as possible. Number four, try to eat as healthy as possible. Number five, exercise. Number six, seek support. Number seven, write down the positives that have come from this change. Number eight, get proactive. Number 9, vent, but to a point. 10, back away from social media. And number 11, give yourself a break. All right, so Gabe, was there any one of these top ones that you wanted to, tackle first, or you just want to go by order? Because they're all pretty much straightforward and somewhat compelling. Because I feel like any time in life where you're kind of stuck or, in a rut or whatever, most of the time I feel like we know what we should be doing.
Yes, absolutely.
It's the basics. It's just actually doing it and just going through the motion. The problem is we halt because of pain. Sure. And, the process. Yeah, and we know that, there's going to be a long process to dig ourselves out. So we kind of hang around in misery and, kind of cope with it in whatever particular way that, whatever the mechanism is, and sometimes get stuck there for longer periods than we could ever, or that we would ever want.
Which I guess that goes right into, number 8, which is get proactive. As to, well, I guess 1 and then 8 is the 1, know things are changing, and 8 is to, start actually doing something about it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like any adult, as an adult, that should be a basic, I guess, thing like that you should know that things are changing. I mean, it's like, sure. I mean, have you been daily alive? Yeah, I exactly. mean, like, things are changing. Things will always change. It doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what your financial status is. It doesn't matter what your health status is. It's always going to change regardless. Good, bad, up, down, sideways. It doesn't matter. It's going to change. Staying steady is just, it's the equivalent of what they say is going backwards. Yeah. But life itself will not stay the same. It's going to change. So if you just stayed still, you're still going to age, right? Well, so you're going backwards. So either way, you're changing.
Or life is passing you by.
Right, exactly. At speed, sometimes you don't want to admit. But being proactive, they define it as being proactive means taking charge and working preventatively. This means you figure out what steps you need to take before something happens. Being reactive means that you wait until something has happened and then you take action. For example, just like in your finances, being proactive is saving, quote, as my mom would say, for a rainy day.
Sure.
When the rainy day comes, you're prepared, right? Being reactive is you get a flat tire or something goes wrong in your vehicle and you're panicking and you're taking it to, the shop because something happened to the car. You didn't maintain the oil changes or rotate the tires properly throughout, like a regular service time frames. So this is the kind of stuff that happens. Obviously, a flat tire is kind of different because that's obviously situational.
Yeah, exactly. That's out of the norm type thing.
Yeah, if the car broke down for you being, you not actually taking care of it, that's what this
not
means.
doing your normal like oil changes and all that stuff too is like.
Yeah, so your reaction is what? Calling a tow truck?
Yeah.
And scrounging for money if you didn't save.
Exactly. But that's the thing, too. You didn't prepare. You don't have the means to.
It's a disaster.
Yeah.
But if you had prepared, it's and you do have the money to take care of the repairs.
Yes.
It's just an inconvenience.
Yes, exactly.
It's not like a panic. It's not like because you're gonna get the rental car. You're gonna keep it moving. It's just an inconvenience at time. You prepared for it, right? They talk about this a lot in health. The problem with the tough part is with health is like you really like anything can happen.
Sure.
Well, I guess that is with everything. I mean, you can really stay on top of your car and anything can happen. Somebody gets smashed into it when you're like at the mall. You know what I mean? Like shopping and you come out into the parking lot, someone like rear-ended you.
Sure, absolutely.
So I guess anything can happen, but. Yeah, health is tough because sometimes people have health conditions really that prevent them from being, I guess, the best versions of themselves. But I mean that still doesn't mean you can't follow doctor's instructions and stuff, or maybe follow a protocol that will at least get you to the highest possible level that you can get to with the circumstances that you're dealing with.
Exactly. And and that goes along with being proactive too, because like even if you don't feel sick and all that stuff too, it's still the almost the rainy day type thing where you still just getting your regular checks and stuff too, just to make sure that you are healthy, because you never know when something randomly is hiding under the surface, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and I also want to touch upon health. I know we always talk about like physical health, but mental health is a major, major one that I don't know if it's like one of those things that, I mean, think about it. Like there's all these like physical fitness like clubs and there's gyms out there and it's very out there and, people are vocal about weight loss and healthy lifestyles. But what they're talking about healthy lifestyle, they're talking about like their physical well-being.
Absolutely.
The mental well-being is the business that I'm in with personal development and the self-help industry, where we're trying to sharpen our minds literally to evolve into what we always, say is the best version of ourselves. But also that helps with, depression and other, negative mental thoughts. Yeah, like all those, uncontrollable thoughts that may or may not pop in your head. For me, my mental fitness is personal development, because it kind of allows me or helps me and educates me on how to handle those situations.
And that's the other part of that too. Like we were talking about the obviously weight training and weight loss and all stuff too. That's quantifiable.
Right.
You can get a number. You know how much you can improve on that, whatever the case may be. Mental health is case by case. There's no way to understand what the individual basis unless you are going through that. That's why there are support groups. That's where like even stuff like one of the biggest hits of like the year with Logic with the the suicide prevention song. That's
right.
Which that's what that phone number is the suicide prevention number. So it's like there's been such a stigma on that for so long that now it's becoming more of an awareness thing that you have to be proactive about stuff like that.
Like they always talk about, it's like, take care of yourself. But a lot of times people are like, when they say take care of yourself, they're talking about like
eat right.
Yeah, eat right and exercise, blah, blah, blah. But take care of yourself is, join a group where you can talk things out. Read a book that's going to help you overcome something. Watch a video that's going to motivate you to, step up to the next level. Educate yourself. Beyond physical rest and exercise and all that stuff, obviously eating healthy helps with the brain as well. So,
Sure.
you're eating a lot of junk and processed foods and all this other stuff that can, mess with you, as well as, the liquids that you're digesting as well. So, I mean, it's kind of like goes on with what they're saying here. Number 9, vent to a point. Having a support group, you can vent, let your feelings out. It can be helpful to a point. If you and your support group are solely venting, that feeling of frustration can be contagious. Try gearing the conversation towards action. What can you do to make things better? When people brainstorm, that creativity and feelings of hopelessness can be contagious as well. Yeah, so it goes both ways. I mean, we talk about this all the time in the personal development industry, where we talk about masterminding. And
Sure.
masterminding is, a lot of people think it's always like stewing up this grand idea to make money or to develop a product or a service or something like that. That's not necessarily the case. You can have a mastermind group of like fathers or husbands that are getting together and how to deal with relationship-based issues with their spouses, the significant others, what have you, or their children. Same thing with fitness, right? You can have a mastermind group on how can we best or how can we most efficiently get the results that we want. And I think that is the point of the groups, is to efficiently and effectively deal with certain problems. Because a lot of times we kind of talk ourselves into and out of things that, somebody else would, if we just listened and had the perfect opinion of someone chiming in, it would make us realize, I mean, you can be the victim of your own thoughts as well.
And that's where it gives you a different perspective. Because I mean, even like you said, you never know what anybody else might have a similar situation that you might have not thought about. Like have doubt over a certain way. And yeah, and it's not always, like you said, it's not always a hoorah type thing. Like, just trying to build each other up. There is dealing with stuff and getting different perspectives that you, especially if you, like you said, if it's with your spouse, whatever, that y'all two are too stuck in the weeds of each other, that you need the outside perspective to kind of balance stuff out.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's a very important point. If you don't know what a mastermind is, I suggest just looking it up. You just Google it, you'll find what that is. And they now, like, Google has like linked groups or whatever it is that you could basically mastermind with people all over the world, via Skype or something like that.
And yeah, it's a lot easier to do stuff like that, especially with like Google Hangouts, and they have all kinds of ways to meet up now, especially now.
Exactly, because I had a couple people, that I was quote counseling, and their biggest thing was like, I don't have a car, I can't meet up with people, or I don't have the internet. Well, nowadays, like between our phones and the ability of what the internet has given us, the capability, and there's really no excuses. Now it's just it's a true decision on your end, not because of your circumstances.
Yeah, exactly.
There's ways to do it. There's free libraries that have internet service. I mean, the list can go on and on and on how you can actually, where there's a way, there's a will, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you really want to change, you'll change, and you'll find the right people. You'll find the right background. You'll find the right book. Find the right video. You will find it. Believe me, if you're looking, you're gonna find it.
Yeah, because I mean, even now, like there's what I think us growing up, there was no section in the bookstore for self-help. It was now, there was just it was under, I don't know what that was even under before. It was like in the back.
It was like business or something.
Yeah.
Or
so now there's literally self-help. So there's ways to find people you connect with, even on just a literary level, that you can, research and find something that works for you.
That's true. And the other thing is, going, not to go too deep, and if you're interested in this topic, you could, look up the Power and the Secret by Rhonda Byrne. But we all have a frequency, and our frequency is, Gabe. It's funny. Gabe has a shirt from Dragon Ball Z, and they always have like this. I just said frequency, and they always have this concentrated look, and makes them. You can see their force field around them, and that's basically the definition of what I'm trying to explain. That's your frequency. So if you could think of Dragon Ball Z and think about how they concentrate their energy to physically show it because it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
That's basically how we operate. And when you have your frequency field hits someone else's, they're interacting with each other, and who knows what will happen. But I know what happens when you interact with a positive force field. Sure. You're going to feel it, whether you like it or not. I'm not going to say you're going to like it, but you're going to feel it, and it's going to change the way you're feeling. They always say like attracts like. So you're going to find eventually you might bounce off, but it's going to take some of your power. So if you keep bumping into it by accident, it's going to basically break you down till you mirror it.
Okay.
And you become the positive force as it is. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's
kind of along like what stuff we've always talked about, like the people you surround yourself, you kind of like vibe off of that, and kind of like you said, you kind of mirror the people you surround yourself with.
Absolutely. And if you get someone who is a leader, leaders just have so we all have frequencies. It's the strength of our frequencies that makes who we are.
Sure.
So leaders just have a strong frequency to whatever kind of person they are. I'm not saying it's good or bad. They're really dialed in, and it's a force field that when you touch it, like when you come into contact with it, you listen, because it's just like they're demanding attention. They're demanding this kind of power in an unintentional way sometimes.
Sure. Does that coincide with like charisma?
It does. Yes, it does. But so the difference is some of it is natural, and like to me, sometimes people with charisma, that's like a natural thing.
That's more like, I guess that's more of like the way you present yourself is attractive.
Right. But that all helps. That all adds to your frequency.
Okay.
But then I feel like some people have like their general, whatever their genetics, whatever their parents gave them. You have your general frequency. Other stuff, and I think in that package comes charisma. Yeah, you can become a more charismatic person, but I believe there's some people just have it. Sure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's whatever your genetic makeup is. That doesn't mean you can't change your force field. So you can still change your frequency. This all, I always wanted to talk about this. I actually wanted to write a book about this, but I think I figured it out. I think I figured something out that I still have not read anywhere. People always talk about then like how did certain people in power take over, quote, nations or a large group of people, and I just think that in particular it's their force field was much stronger than everyone else's, so it's demanding that attention. So our force fields have a makeup, like a genetic makeup, right? Then they have a strength to them. So if you're a person, people always say like, oh, they're a shy person. Well, when a shy person meets like an outgoing person, who's going to be talking? The outgoing person, because you subdue, or what is that called? Like, it's almost like submissive.
Sure.
You're submissive to that frequency. So basically, whether it was on purpose or not, it's
absolutely.
just. So it's kind of like the relationship of, and I know I don't want to lose everybody, but I'm going to bring it back. Just think of a parent-child. So a parent, obviously, is a more experienced human being, so their frequency is much stronger than a child. Now, a child is more on the level of innocence, but they have a strong energy, or a strong frequency because of their energy, not because of their experience or them even knowing how to use their frequency.
Yeah.
So. But because they're smaller beings, their strength can only be so much. And so the adult will always have power over the child. That's why you see it's like, people always talk about, the law of attraction, and how in the world can, there be abusive relationships. How can a child who's 3 said, oh, he put that out in the world, and say that's the law of attraction? So I think that is where the disconnect is. That's not necessarily true. What happened in those situations is there's an idea being developed. I'm not saying that this is true. Is that the adult frequency is trumping the child's frequency. So no matter what the child does, even if the child's happy, even if the child never put that negative thought in their mind, the they're being overcome by a stronger force field.
Because the other person is using their level of power to overpower the lesser person. Because like you said, like we have the lesser person or the child, whatever, has only so much, so they can only control so much of that.
Exactly. And so if you could think of that kind of, of it in that manner, adults operate in that same way. So some people have a stronger force field. So this is why we always say, I believe in you.
Yeah.
When I say I believe in you, it's because you actually have the ability to strengthen your force field. The reason why it's not strong is on you.
Yeah.
Of course,
you're limiting yourself.
Yeah, you're limiting yourself. Of course, you went through some things. You went through some experiences, some very bad ones that you're coping with. But that doesn't mean you can't get out of that. That's why I can honestly say I believe in you because I know what is capable. And obviously, there's so much more that I don't know. But I'm saying at this point in my life, I've done things to reach certain goals by just out of thin air and just making it happen without even knowing how. And I just used that energy and applied it to my force field, whatever, my frequency. I'm using all these words kind of mean the same thing. To get there. And it's just me just constantly creating it, constantly making it bigger, and you will get there. Like that's because there's that will. Where there's a will, there's a way. All of a sudden, life starts moving out of the way for you and starts opening doors where you could never predicted that were going to open. So it just goes back to same thing with like there's a dominance. That's a good word. There's a dominance that some people have over other people, and it's not necessarily people thinking the law of attraction in the negative connotation, but the law of attraction is because what force field that you have out in the world. So it's the law of attraction in the sense that you're not putting out a strong enough frequency to trump that dominating force of the other person.
Well, it goes along with too, like it's the opposite attract type situation too. Where it's like, you want the opposite reaction, if that makes any sense.
For the balance.
Yes.
Yeah. The yin and yang. I mean, you have to have balance. That is your body and your mind, soul, all craving that balance. And so when you see people get sick, when you see people break something in their body, when you see people lose their minds, it's because they didn't. There wasn't a balance.
Sure. And
that's the hardest thing in life is to balance. We constantly crave balance, and when we go out of line and off about 2 inches, life or something's gonna bring you back.
Sure, absolutely.
But yeah, so going back anyway to the the force fields and the frequencies is I believe in the strength. So we always talk about everyone's always talking about everyone has a frequency to them, like successful people attract other successful people. Yeah, so when if my frequency is at 98.8 and yours is at 98.8, then we're eye level and we can talk to each other on the same, level. If you're 97.5 and I love how I'm giving radio stations and I'm 94.5, you're going to be talking at a level that not necessarily, it's not over my head too much because it's not that far off, but it's not going to be on the same level.
Sure.
So one is stronger than the other, and always, and I know this sounds like no duh, like the stronger frequency energy level is going to be the dominator. So so if you could think of it that way, like even the male and female thing.
Sure.
Right? Like physically, a male can dominate in most general terms. Let's just speak in the most general terms. And I don't, trying to offend anybody. Just if you could just think of this in your mind. Let's just think about me and my wife. I'm 6'3", 235 pounds. My wife is 5'1", 113 pounds, and that's because she's pregnant. So if you could think of it on those
basic,
terms, just on those physical terms, I'm clearly the dominating force.
Yeah.
But on an energy level, she can obviously mentally she can destroy me on stuff.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like not the physical, like the physical presence. It's the force field that you're creating.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's people, same thing. Like you got like a Napoleon, who's someone who's 5 foot nothing, and he has the most dominating
the dominant personality.
Yeah. It's just it's just a dominance. If you could have the dominating fact, and if you can forget going against people, have that mentality going against the day and going against your negative thoughts. This is how I think of it. Dude, it's just me versus me. So me versus good guy, me versus negative guy. Let's fight. And that's what it is every single day. Where you want to talk about it, good and evil, positive, negative, however you want to think about it, that's who you're fighting every single day. It's the trash talking smack dude who just wants to be lazy and eat potato chips and burgers and drink, loser juice all day versus the person who wants to eat right, sleep right, read right.
And that kind of goes back to one of the things we learned, like when we were in like the marketing business stuff, was the kind of having the air of excellence.
Yes.
Of like trying to, you present yourself the best way possible, and like, you will attract the positivity, or whatever the case may be. Like,
I still to this day, man, I still carry that thought process around. I truly believe it because I seen it work for me.
Absolutely.
There's times where I necessarily wasn't, obviously, there's a lot of times where I'm not the smartest person in the room, but that I know for a fact, people are more educated, more experienced than me, and in terms of that stuff. But I dominated conversations, and it's just a way of it's my approach,
absolutely,
right? And that's what they're always talking about, the air of excellence. And me and my coworker were just talking about this the other day. I was telling him, obviously going back to Mercedes-Benz slogan is the best or nothing, and he didn't believe me. I'm like, no, that's literally their thing. He's like, that's incredible. He's like, and do you think they were the best when they came up with that? No. But that was their goal, was to be the best, and eventually became the best. Now that's all subjective. But it's the way you carry yourself is huge.
But that's the thing, like sometimes you need that, like we talked before, it's like having like that, not to say the cockiness, or like the fake it till you make it type thing situation.
Oh yeah, fake it till you make it.
So you say those things. Yeah, I mean, you have inkling of like that's where you want to go. So it's not like you're sitting on your couch saying, I'm going to be the greatest, and you're not doing anything. You're saying that with being proactively actually trying to do something.
Yeah.
So whether you actually hit that, whatever that quote unquote, what you're trying to do, whatever your goals or whatever the case may be, at least you're doing something to even remotely get to that level of what you're saying you are.
Yeah, I mean, there's always something to just a level of confidence, or just pretend. Well, even if you're pretending you're confident, eventually you're gonna somehow hit that frequency, and that's basically what it is. The fake it till you make it. Whereas you're at least acting like and talking like someone who's successful. Eventually, you're gonna hit that. And it can come off as cheesy at first. But when you actually get there, it became authentic somewhere along the line. That's what people don't. It's like, oh, I feel inauthentic doing it. Yeah, you're going to. Just like when you were 15, you thought you were a grown man. You're really not a grown man. You're not doing anything grown men are doing. You're just a kid still. So it's like, well, people can argue that too. It depends on, the person. Because there's people out there working, hustling at that young age anyway. But I'm just saying, like, people are trying to say, like, the majority of people would say, like, oh, when you're at that age or that adolescence age, you just think like you know everything, and you have everything under control, or whatever. You're faking it, or you think you got it, and you don't own a house, you don't own a car, you don't own like nothing, or you're
not real life yet.
You're still in this little bubble for the most part. So you're pretending.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
But then eventually you'll get there. You will have your own spot. You will have your own whip. Like, you'll have that stuff. But it took work, right?
Sure.
So you got to go to work to then get the money, to then get the stuff, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's kind of going along with what you were saying before. It's like you can't just sit around in a room. This was when the wrong view of The Secret, when that first came out, where people literally said, the law of attraction
was just you thinking about it, it's going to happen.
Right. Thoughts become things. Yeah, they do. If you take action, or someone else takes action for you, but because you can have the money for it, right? But that money, there's an energy inside that money. That money already created the work in so many words. I know that sounds super weird, but Okay, so
You
for
already,
example,
you already
it's like-
started the process of that.
yeah, so that you already basically put in the work, or somebody already had put in the work.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, or given to you. For example, like I can think about, man, I wish my lawn was cut. Boom, I can make a phone call, and in 10 minutes, I'll have a guy out here for $25, and my lawn's done.
Yeah.
I didn't do the work, but my thought became a thing.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? But people literally were taking it as $1 million are in my lap. I'm just gonna pretend $1 million in my lap.
Exactly.
There has to be some level of action in between there. And even if it's not from you, someone is doing some level of action. Like, you can't just sit around in a room and just, think about it all day. Believe me, there's people who literally did that and see where they are right now.
Yeah, exactly.
They're still probably in that room thinking about things, pontificating on life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what, and then you get the frustration of that because you think, oh, I can think about it, it's going to happen, and then you're mad that it's not happening.
Yeah, I kind of like what they said on 7. Write down the positives that come from this change. Maybe due to this change in your life, you have met new people. Maybe you started practicing healthier habits. Maybe you became more politically active. Maybe you became more assertive. Maybe the change helped you prioritize what is most important in your life. Change presents us with the opportunity to grow, and it's important to acknowledge how things have become better as a result. Obviously, not all change is good, but not all change is bad. Yeah. So they're talking reflection, as we talked about in our last podcast. Was thinking about all the good stuff that have happened and how much you have grown. I forget one of these, the godfathers of personal development said, I think it was Jim Rohn, become a millionaire not for the money, become a millionaire for the person that it's going to make you.
Yeah.
That is such a big difference in, thought process. It's just making $1 million, it's great, dude. That believe me, that is fantastic. Good for you. But don't solely do it for the money. When you solely do it for the money, there's so many lessons that you're missing.
Absolutely.
So much growth that you're missing out of. You're already going through that process. Turn it into something, because here's the thing with these pontificators or these thinkers, where somehow, let's just say you did $1 million did pop on your lap, aka lottery.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not going to maintain that. I would say 95% of the people will not be able to maintain that valuation because you didn't, quote, take the action to get it. You just had this luck.
Yeah.
And somehow it just came together. And I truly do believe that, because if it wasn't luck, then everybody would hit the lottery.
Yeah, exactly.
There's just so many odds against it that it becomes almost like that could never happen.
Because there's very few instances of people actually elongating the amount that they over so many years, whatever it is,
invested.
Yes.
Or put in. Let's just say invested.
Because usually you always hear the stories, even like to some similar degree of like sports athletes, get the money, get the big contracts and all stuff too, and then most of them are don't have that in a few years afterwards because they, like I said, don't understand what it takes to actually hold that down.
Right. Because it wasn't, quote, earned just yet. People, because
somebody handed you a big contract.
Because you're going off to people saying, oh yeah, they earned it. That's why they're like, dude, these people get contracts before they even step on the field.
Yeah, exactly.
It's their natural athletic ability is totally different than someone
business acuity.
Right. So and then now compare somebody who's been in the league for so many years, then that's different.
Yes.
Because they're maintaining that and they're constantly working their stuff out. I'm not saying people aren't working hard, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is you were already majority way there based off your natural ability.
Yes, exactly.
You can't tell me that, because I'll outwork you. I'll run circles around you when it comes to work. But I can't make my body be athletic in a way that yours already is, and you just have this natural ability. I'm not, and I have like really skinny legs. And
the other part too, like what you said was that, you be in the league long enough. Yeah, at that point, you're getting all these sponsorships and all stuff. So you're becoming a business person anyways, because after a while, you're making these business plans. You're doing all this stuff to understand what it takes to maintain it.
Yeah, to get it, then maintain it.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so here what they're saying with number 7 is write those down, write the positive outcomes, because that is becoming that person, and you can that reflection is adding on to the lessons.
And even going on with big major changes, like you said, like there is negative changes too that are happening, but sometimes you get too caught in the weeds of maybe the negativity, whatever it is the case may be, is that it's hard to see the positive. But if you focus on the little things here and there, then it at least makes it somewhat better to understand like where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, obviously that's pretty straightforward. But let's just say you're on the other end of that, and you need to seek support, as they say in number 6.
Yeah.
Where you can't fight the fight anymore, or you're feeling weak.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're saying, seek support. No one gets through life alone. It's okay to ask for help. It is a sign that you know yourself well enough to realize you need some assistance. Think of your trusted friends or family members. The chances are they are happy to help you if you need them to watch your kids while you run some errands or just need some time alone. There may be a neighbor that has asked you for help in the past. Now maybe you can ask them for help. Apps like Nextdoor have been helpful for connecting neighbors. If you are thinking about hurting yourself or killing yourself, please contact the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. Now, sometimes people think that seeking help is a form of weakness.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying when you said that initially. I was like, but kind of like the beginning, understanding that you do need help is a strength in itself, because you're starting to overcome what you already feel like you're weak on.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and like the first step is admitting that you don't know how to deal with this.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And so, okay, I don't know how to deal with this, or I'm dealing with this the wrong way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I need help. That's not a weakness, like you said, Gabe. That's coming from a source of strength, because you came to this realization. If it was coming from a weakness, you would just do what you were doing to just, go in this downward spiral or whatever, and completely out of control. You're now gaining back control of your life when you're seeking help.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
now you need that assistance. We all do. We can't meander life alone. Like, you just can't do that. It makes no sense. We need each other. And so when I'm up, you could possibly be down. That's going to bring you up.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Absolutely.
Or vice versa. So, or I can come up, and I can come from a place of strength when you're at a place of weakness, and I can
absolutely.
come and add some of my strength onto you. So it's basically like if we go back to those frequencies, giving you a chunk of my frequency and adding it, just slapping it on yours, almost like a Play-Doh, if you could think that.
And even on a somewhat similar moment, that's what, like, kind of going the frequency things is that's why there's support groups, because the people who are, I guess, essentially on the same frequency of might be going through that same type of situation, whatever it is, and you kind of are helping each other get to a better frequency.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then the other thing with like groups, like seeking help with like groups, you're gonna see that there's people just like you.
Absolutely.
Right? There's other people going through the same stuff that might be just as difficult. And then you're gonna see some people who are going through stuff worse than you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it kind of it's there basically to put life into perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of times we take things for granted, or we're not appreciative of even the down times. And I know that sounds super weird, but you got to think of it as a time of growth. It's going to be a time of you figuring out. Look, listen, you're going to face problems for the rest of your life. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, that is what most people don't understand. Successful people didn't just get there because they never faced a problem.
Yeah.
A lot of people are missing that. It's how you're dealing with your problems.
Is
the difference.
Exactly. Is the problem solving along the way.
So if I'm dealing with my problems with a substance or abusing some other thing, then that is what I'm gonna trigger. That's gonna be my mechanism when anytime a problem pops up. Exactly. And guess what? Like I just said, there's gonna be problems forever. So if you're not dealing with it the right way, you're just gonna constantly go the wrong direction.
Especially with that, if you're covering up with something like that, that's not dealing with it. That's escapism. That's changing the problem into something else.
That's not dealing with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're actually going the other. You're running away from it.
Exactly.
And that's weakening you. Because you will always have to fight that battle. Okay, so you can't ever run away from any problem. You can't ever run away from it because it's going to reappear.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Even when you go the opposite direction, that bad boy is going to come around like a loop and just smack you in your face again. Okay. And it's going to be like, wow. And it's going to be harder.
I was going to say, yeah.
Because it's going to have a lot of momentum this time. And it's going to hit you hard. And all that stuff that you keep putting away, it's going to add up. And when it hits you, it's going to hit you. And that's when a lot of people hit that, quote, rock bottom.
Yeah.
And it's not a fun place to be.
No.
So successful people deal with the problems as they're coming. They're not pushing them to the side or avoiding them or ignoring them. Whether it's them or their team, somebody is dealing with these problems and they just keep eating them and keep it moving. Like I said before, we're always going to go through problems. We just got to understand that and just be able to deal with them. It's the equivalent of thinking like every time I go drive into work, it's going to be an easy, perfect drive. That's not the case. There's going to be a nut job who's always in a rush. There's going to be the slow poke. There's going to be a car accident. You're going to get pulled over. There's going to be a road closed for whatever reason, some level of construction, whatever. It's always going to change. There's always going to be problems coming my way. That's not a negative thing, though.
Exactly.
People are finding or looking at problems as a negative thing. It could be a positive thing. It's just how you're looking at it. It's your perception of it.
Exactly. And that kind of goes along with number 2 is says realize stress can come from good change.
Yes.
It's how you react to change. It's your body's way of how you're reacting to change.
Yeah. Yeah, and it even says it's okay to feel stress even when something good has happened. In fact, it's normal. If you just had a baby, that was just like, that was like me. It was like, I was finished with my classes, right? Those of you who don't know, I'm entered into my master's program here at Drexel University in Philadelphia. And I finished my practice, and I was still stressful. Why? Because I'm finished. You would think like, oh, you're done. You're happy. No, I'm waiting for the grade now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, I did everything that I could do, but now I'm still stressed out. Or it's like, I got my grades back, but now I'm stressing about like the next one. It's like, dude, you have to like at the same time blitz certain things, and then other stuff you just have to like, dude, relax, and just let it develop itself.
Sure.
And there comes a point where you're forcing stuff, and I talked about this on the last podcast, where there's a lot of stuff I could have forced this year that I didn't, and it worked out even better than I thought it was going to work out in my head. That's not a level of laziness. That's a level of understanding.
Sure.
There's a difference. I understood that there was only so much I can do, and once I did my part, I let it go. In the past, I did my part, and then I was trying to do other people's parts as well. That is where I stressed myself out and messed up.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference between that, and that's a big, valuable lesson. I hope somebody who's out there who's listening needed that, because that was basically my entire 20s, was me forcing things that didn't, and sometimes it worked out, and sometimes it was really good, because if I didn't necessarily do that, then certain things wouldn't have panned out per se.
Sure.
But who's to say that I didn't stop even better things from happening?
Absolutely. Yeah, because you don't know, you were too, I don't know if it's micromanaging type situation, but I mean, sometimes you get too much into that you don't realize a better opportunity was kind of like around the corner. That it worked out well, but it could have, like you said, could have worked out way better.
Yes. And that goes back into, not necessarily seeking group, but seeking assistance. And whether you want a coach or a mentor or whatever, or just a friend. A lot of times, like I said earlier, we talk ourselves into and out of things, and how we're viewing things is not necessarily the best way. So if you get that second opinion, they'll kind of like turn your head just a little bit and see the beautiful landscape just on a different angle, even if it's off by 5 degrees.
Yeah.
And it's a totally different picture.
But there's kind of like, like you said, like the support group type stuff, there's strength in understanding your weaknesses, but at the same time, like when you're like trying to micromanage and trying to do everything all you by yourself, there's a strength in delegating, understanding that you don't understand, you can't do everything by yourself, that you need the outside help to fully accomplish your goal.
Yeah, dude, I know people who started their own business, right? By themselves. But the business grew so much that there's no way, literally, you cannot do it by yourself if you want to grow.
Sure.
And life is all about growth. So for you to just think that I'm just going to get to a point and I'm going to make a certain amount of money, or I'm going to reach a certain level and that's it, I'm just going to maintain. It's not about that, dude. You're missing a lot of the points. And if that's where you want to be in a certain sector, then start something else.
Sure.
You have to, it's our natural, it's in our DNA to grow.
Yeah.
And I'm not,
literally
first half of our life, it's like physically, and then the second half, it's mentally.
Sure.
That's pretty much where you are. Because you're gonna get to a point. Well, physically you can only hold up for so long, and your body's kind of slowing up or whatever, and how it reacts to life and what it's processing. But I feel like your brain is getting sharper. Your mental capacity is totally different because now you get to tap into things. You get to tap into a knowledge base. You get to tap into experiences and spit off answers or have resolutions for problems that you didn't even know were coming, but since you have the experience, you can just handle.
Exactly.
And that is what, is the gift of age gives you.
Yeah. Well, that's what, age and wisdom go hand in hand, but I mean, not everybody pulls sometimes the proper experiences or proper lessons from the experiences experiences they had.
So guess what's going to happen? Guess what life is going to do? It's going to keep throwing that same one until you get it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm telling you, it's happened to me on multiple levels, and it'll continue to happen to me until I'm like, oh, I get it now. Okay. Why does this keep happening to me? Why do I keep missing my flight? Why do I keep missing or failing my classes? Why can I get into a steady relationship? Why can I land it? Until you find there's something that's wrong, obviously. Then until you tweak that one thing and work on yourself.
Sure.
And this doesn't take away from, we're all unique. Oh, you're perfect. You are who you are. But you still have to grow. You are.
Sure.
Everyone is beautiful, I think, in my opinion. And you can be. But you can expand your frequency. If you can just go back to that initial lesson that I was talking about earlier. 4 and 5 are the basics, but I kind of want to put a little twist on them. They say try to eat as healthy as possible. Number 4, number 5, exercise. Let's talk about the other thing because that is a super saturated topic just in life in general. And if you have any level, if you haven't been living under a rock, you know that. But if you can talk about those two things on a mental capacity and exercise by reading books, exercising your mind and trying to eat as healthy as possible as kind of the same thing, feeding your mind with the proper information and healthier information than the junk that you normally feed it. Those are two huge steps that aren't necessarily fun to talk about, but they're necessary to talk about. And everyone at this point understands, the health aspect when it comes to physically being healthier. The last one or the last two, number 10, back away from social media, and number 11, give yourself a break. I find both of those kind of funny because sometimes people say my guilty pleasure is social media, which means that's kind of like a break away from stuff, and they get entertained by that. So it is kind of funny. It depends on your personality. So again, going back to basic lessons that you were taught as a child but forgot to apply them is too much of one thing is never good.
Exactly.
So that's all it is. Not that social media is bad. Not that, again, going back to money. Oh, money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. That is the issue.
Yeah.
Which means the obsession. That's too much.
Yes, exactly.
It's not money. It's not money is money. It is what it is.
It's the deception that you need to make more and more money all the time.
Yeah, it's the too much of the thought process or whatever it is. Too much of one thing. Same thing with being gluttony.
Sure.
Too much of eating is
Absolutely.
is not a good thing. It's too much social media. You're living vicariously through other people or living this fake life or whatever it is. That's too much. But if you're getting there and you're just entertaining yourself, social media responsibly. There you go.
Exactly.
In a responsible way, just as you would with other, things.
Exactly.
And I think, honestly, I think in this generation that's like a basic thing that we'll see from here on out. Because when growing up, social media wasn't a thing.
No, absolutely.
Which I can go back to a podcast that we had probably 10 episodes ago that I talked about us being the perfect generation time-wise.
Yes.
Not production-wise. Of course, we're not the best generation as of yet. You never know yet. But I feel like because we grew up in an era that was old school still. We still grew up without the electronics.
No, exactly.
Until like later on in, whatever, in late 80s.
Yes, it was...
I mean, and that was like you were like
late 90s was when really cell phones really started becoming abundant, and even then it was still like, oh, you have day and night minutes or whatever the heck it was.
Right. There was no internet service on that thing.
There was barely even texting at that point. So.
Right. Exactly. So until we got to this point now where we are, where it's, you know, there's computers in the palm of our hands.
Exactly. And the videos you share online was your VHS tapes that you had to force somebody to come sit in your couch and show them your home videos.
Exactly. So right, times are changing. It's how we're handling it, how we're hitting the rapid speeds of and manipulating our own lives. But going back to what they were saying is reflecting on them, not being too hard on yourself, getting help, getting advice, eating healthy, feeding your mind properly. And giving yourself a quote break.
Sure.
That depends. A break on what? And this is what a lot of people don't talk about. They always think of break as a break from work, a break from whatever. No, you need a break from whatever is kind of, you know, stressing you out. I don't need a break from you know, my relationship if it's not stressing me out. Like I don't need you know what I'm saying? Like I don't need a break from
I guess it's more like the term like the change of scenery type thing.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
Because when you're too much involved into one thing, then you need to kind of like you said, take a break from that particular thing. Just do something else. You're too involved in work, whatever. Go spend time with your family, whatever. Like something like that. Just do something different. Is more or less what it is.
Yeah. So I think this is a great article. I think everyone should head over to psychologytoday.com and read this article titled Ways to Cope with Big Changes. I thought, you know, it's fantastic. It hit a lot of really good points. And if you do need help and you are seeking help, don't forget the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or suicidepreventionlifeline.org. With that being said, we like to close our episodes with quotes. And the first one is by Lao Tzu. Life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward in whatever way they like. That kind of goes on back to the thing we were talking about. We're like forcing. And the second one is by Steve Maraboli. Incredible change happens in your life when you decide to take control of what you do, have power over, instead of craving control over what you don't. Parentheses, have power over. So there you have it, folks. Life's a-changing. In this episode, we focused on a psychologytoday.com article titled Ways to Cope with Big Changes by Stephanie Sarkis. We wrapped the episode up with quotes by Lao Tzu and Steve Maraboli. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyLeeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyLeeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.